I have the best testimonials. Like, dude, word, right? It's no wonder, like, you get testimonials like that. It's not gonna be easy to just stop them off. That's how it works. I hope you people are having a great time and you had a fantastic day. I don't even remember what I've done today, but as usual, we're here for another stream. How cool is that? We got Ultimate Warrior protecting us from heaven. We got IK Plus playing in the background on my trusty Amiga 1200. And today, we're gonna discover the new UAD Ampex ATR-102 registered trademarks everywhere. Tape recorder plugin, not the real thing. Nobody wants the real thing. They all want the plugin. And so UAD just gives us the plugin. Now, if you've missed, what was it? Like the day before yesterday, stream, look it up. We did The Unfair Child by UTA, by, you know, Eric Valentine's company. I don't know if you've watched that. It's gonna be soon available as a video. There's like a technical part first, and then we just jumped into audio stuff. But man, this is challenging. Running a stream like 2 days back to back, one against each other, I can't do it. I don't know if I can do it. I don't have the clothing for it, you know. I can't show up in a stream with the same clothing as I had in the previous stream. I have to keep it diverse. I don't have a wardrobe for running a stream more than once a week. Can you believe that? I'm just not a clothing person, you know. I go from, you know, I look good in sharp dresses because of my Italian heritage, right? But I'm just, you know, I spend my money elsewhere, you know. So hardware for audio, synthesizers, digital pianos, acoustic ones that don't fit my homes usually, and RC cars, video games. I don't know, I would say video cards, but it's been quite a while since I bought my last video card. So it's actually over 5 years. Wow. I don't want to buy a video card right now. I don't have the money for it. But I'm not a clothing person, so I just cannot. This is really challenging for me. You know, you see people on YouTube all the time, like every day they stream every day. But they have clothing to look different every day, and I don't. So either I go shop for stuff, or we tell these manufacturers to stop making plugins. That would be also good. So everything should work. We're here because yesterday, Universal Audio released for Spark native. So you don't need a UAD DSP accelerated card. One of their most famous plugins ever. Probably one of their top 5 moneymakers in their catalog. And as you know, to run Universal Audio plugins, you needed a DSP audio card. You need their own card, their chips, their licensing system, and then you buy their plugins. Some of them, they're given to you for free with the purchase of an expensive audio card like an Apollo, or you buy them. So you buy something to be able to buy something else. And you're happy about it, you know. You don't make records, but you're happy you're buying stuff that allows you to buy stuff, right? And this land of DSP ended, not ended, but got integrated by Universal Audio with their own line of Spark plugins, okay? Spark is their native platform. I don't know if you know it, I don't know if you've never taken a look at it, but if you are from planet Earth into music production, you will probably have seen Spark. It's a bundle of plugins, it's a catalog of native plugins taken from the DSP pool of legendary, very old plugins that Universal Audio made for DSP. But not all of their DSP plugins are available as native. They're slowly releasing, or quickly releasing, depending how you want to see that, plugins in native form from their DSP catalog. Yesterday, the ATR-102 dropped, and we have it here, hopefully, hopefully, because I had more than one licensing problem, okay? So I saw on some forums, whose name I will not name, I shan't name, that hell broke loose on the internet. Can you believe that? It happened. It happened because the version that we get for native Spark is different from the one that they had in DSP. I don't know if the presets are gonna recall, but it's different. Now, I don't work for UAD. I have worked for UAD as a third-party independent professional. My opinions are solely my own, and trust me, Universal Audio, if they had one quality, the people at UA, they had the stamina and energy to behave while being at a dinner table with me and sustaining the whole thing in a legendary fashion. They survived, but they, internally they just couldn't do it, but they did it marvelously. It looked like they were okay having me there. It was just fantastic. It really looked so real. There's only a couple companies that can do that. UA definitely could do it. So they're talented. They have the skill set. Also with their Spark situation, we are probably gonna see UA on the street soon, Maybe Hollywood Boulevard, You're walking the Star, the Hall of Fame, and they stop you and they say can you hold this and test your stress levels? Because if you're stressed, you need plugins. We make them, but not in the audio cards, maybe native, So they're gonna pop up in your neighborhood wanting you to test your stress levels. Could happen, but they're really pushing their DSP and native thing together. Some people have no idea how they can pull that off because it looks like they're against their own commercial policies. But, we're lucky that we're getting stuff. Now, before you think Alberto has all of their plugins because he's just spoiled and secretly works with their, conspiracy movements or whatever, which they don't probably have. This is the plugins I own in Spark, okay? And you can't see them, but now you can. These are the plugins I own. I have a demo of the ATR-102. I have the Century Tube, which came free, the LA2A, the Manly, and the Studer. I have no other plugin in Spark for whatever. Now, if we talked about the DSP version, I have some more, but they're not released for native yet. But I don't have them all. I'm not just secretly fed with all of the goodies and stuff. This is what I have. I have one demo and 4 plugins. They're good. I like them, especially the LA2 and the Massive Passive, because I'm just used to use them. That's it. So now that we know the basics of politics, we can go into taking a look at what is going on, Jolie asks, do you have the ATR-102 in native and DSP? I do. I don't remember. I should check. But I have 2 UAD accounts that I've never merged because when I used to do product specialist stuff in Italy, I had accounts for some of the gear I would take with me, which is not the account I'm registered on right now. So there's one that is mine, and then there's the other one that is stuff that I got when I was working as a product specialist. And other stuff that I bought ended up on that account, which I can move. So here it didn't sync. If I owned it, I'm pretty sure I should have synced, which was the doubt we were having yesterday on Discord, right? So I'm thinking, I don't remember, maybe my mistake was the Studer. That's what I have for sure, which is synced here, and I got it. The massive passive, same thing, because it came free. The Studio and the massive passive, I think I got free when I had my first Apollo Thunderbolt. And this is the Studio from 2012 to, no, 12 to 14, something like that. So, you know, when you bought an Apollo 16 Thunderbolt, or you have coupons that you can use to buy without paying a dime out of it. And then you can also pay a dime, which adds to it, all right? So what are we doing today? We're gonna test these 102 master tape. But, as usual, we're gonna give this plugin not a hard time, but we're gonna, you know, go through the paces, and then I'm gonna give you who scratched the 102, by the way. Dang. Are those scratches or are those dust lines? Hard to say. Is there maybe like a shaving blade somewhere? Wow, okay. So that happened on our 80 or on our 102. Was it like that before? Who was in the studio? Not here today. I don't remember it looking that way. Okay, so it looks good for sure, but those lines are kind of scary. Who was here before? So anyway, this is the plugin. You know that? Yes, you've used it many times. Residue of Colombian marching powder, Mike Reynolds said. I mean, if these were the old days, you never know the kind of things that you would just stumble upon. But it looks like somebody, maybe put their phones on it and just scratched it. I don't know. We don't know. We don't want to know. But it's a different interface. It looks better. The last time I've used this thing was for a record with I'm not kidding. I'm really remembering that. The last time I've used this, or maybe Ethan. Yeah, when Ethan moved the tape recorder somewhere else. I've used this with the Danish band, who was very popular in Denmark in the 70s, I think, 80s. And I recorded some takes at the studio in Berlin that were gonna be mixed by an engineer in the Faroe Islands, all right? Faroe. How do you say that? Faroe? I say Faroe Islands. Anyway, I got his session, and I remember we had the ATR-102 on bass, believe it or not. So we're gonna run it through, and that's that's probably 7 years ago. But I know this plugin, and I kind of like it, I gotta say. But it's got its own behavior here and there. So meters at the bottom, reproduce and record. Now, to me, not because it's a UAD plugin, but this looks like they leave. When you put your glasses on and the signs say reproduce, record, make records, produce, master, mix, buy plugins. It kind of looks dystopian to me. I can't, So there's a record level and there's a playback level. So normally they're set in auto gain, but I'm gonna tell you right off the bat, we're not gonna auto gain. I don't like this thing. So we're gonna keep our, 6 here and 8 playback, but we're not gonna auto gain because I don't like the linking on this thing. Then we got our meters, inputs and outputs. Then we can open the... You never trust auto gain. Jolie says, I never trust auto gain. Well, so in some plugins, I do kind of use it to wing it, and just get in the ballpark. If there's one plugin I really don't like, the auto gain, not the algorithm, the behavior, like it's not in my workflow, it's a plugin like this, because I need to move stuff on my own, especially because I tend to open the plugin here, go to open and get the left and right repro and, you know, the repro heads and rec heads EQing and bias. So I kind of, when you do this and you also play a little bit with the formula or with even just the calibration, I need to just do my adjustments there. And I shifted the meters from in to out a lot, like a lot, up to the point where I would almost like this plugin to have the possibility of having left-right input average and left-right output average on 2 different meters. It's a suggestion that UAD on Hollywood Boulevard will never listen to, you know. Hold those stress levels and just shut up. But that would be cool because I find myself really trying to find the spot in these plugins. So open and close, we got EQs for record head and repro head and then the bias. There's a crosstalk on off, there's wow and flatter. There's a calibration that gets to auto. It breaks down if you just, you know, move something. See how it resets here if you go auto cal. Then there's a hiss and hum that will generate some of the typical hiss and hum from transformers and the tape thing. There's no auto blanking, so I can hear it. Maybe you can't, but there's just a little bit. And so it's not auto blanking, so it's always on, even if you're not printing, if you're not playing things back. There's a tape speed here. There's on and off, which completely turns off the emulation. So it's like a full bypass. But I kind of like to go to input and then go, or actually through and repro. That's how I kind of like to assess what the plugin's doing. We have transformer emulation on and off. We can link and unlink the channels, which is particularly useful when you want to unlink, for example, the left bias with the right bias, depending on which kind of, you know, usually I don't do it, but you can unlink stuff. And then the knob and CCIR emphasis EQs, that's like kind of Europe and the US thing, very subtle, but it's there. And then the tape, you have 4 types of tapes. So the 250, the 456, 900, and GP9, super famous ones. Calibration settings and which kind of tape width you have. So you have a 1 inch, half inch, quarter inch. Do not believe that 1 inch is better than quarter inch just because it's thicker, okay? All right, so I'm not gonna say anything else, but just don't. There's a different kind of response and behavior than 1 inch tape gives you against half or quarter inch, that people are sometimes wary of the fact that it might sound better on quarter inch for some stuff compared to 1 inch, okay? So if you have a rock band, you're not automatically going to 1 inch, and if you have a soundtrack, you actually don't go to quarter, maybe, you know? So there's a little bit of things that people like to do, but it's not always, it just changes the vibe. There's plenty of beautiful quarter inch tape that just sounds fantastic. Sound fantastic, maybe better than some half inch tape for some types of music. Obviously, you can't change them on the real machine like this, you know? So that's important. I think there's nothing else. The reels, which actually changed, this is really nice. So they have a licensing for Ampex. They clearly don't have the licensing for the 250, which is another brand. Then we have what? The 900 Studio Master. Did I get it? High output tape? No, maybe not. But this is still Ampex, right? That made the 900? I don't remember. And then the GP9, we don't know. But look at that. I mean, we got the Ampex logo. And these things spin, so they're really nice. So we can listen to the input signal. We can listen to the through signal, we can listen to the sync signal or the repro. So full tape is always repro. Then you can listen to the typical sync head. Nobody really does it on a daily basis, but you needed to do it because you would have been unable to play over something if you were using the repro head because it comes later. So there's a latency on the real thing that is not on the sync head because the sync head is on the rec head, sort of, right? And it sounds different. So some people swear by the sync head for some specific sound design things. Usually the wrapper is where the beautiful stuff is. Input is what it's coming into it, and through is just no tape, but the transformers. If I get these right, could it be that input is the transformer sound? No, I'm thinking through is you go through the electronics, but I'm scared now. The live stream thing is scaring me. The pressure, right? Is it? No, I think through has the transformer sound. So how do you know? You just go to help and video, documentation, and then you would know. So don't do it now, don't get distracted. We know that. But I usually go from through to repro because I want to keep some things constant. I don't want to completely drop it off. But if you bypass the whole thing, you'll have full bypass for sure. On a real tape machine, the last thing you want to do is power it off while it's playing and then power it on while things are passing through it. You know, you'll get probably 25 to life if you do something like that, just so you know. So this is the plugin. There's just nothing else to do. And do I have something to use it on? For sure. So let's bypass this. We'll do some comparisons because I have a couple plugins that I want you to listen to. One is Quantum, which is loading right now. And Quantum is an emulation of a famous control found on the Crane song head, okay? So it's somewhere in here, it's loading. Look at that. Maybe it's not loading. Then I'm gonna use virtual tape machines as well. This is late digital. And man, this thing, you can try and go around these as much as you want. This thing still sounds cool on a lot of stuff. So I would think we just hear how it compares. And here's Quantum, as we said. Quantum is, as I said, kind of a head tape knob with a little bit of calibration possibilities on it. That's kind of a setting I kind of always use, whatever. And let me just, did I make it inactive? Yes, okay. Then virtual tape, and then, oh, of course. Then this is the third guy that I want to try things on. This is Satin, or Satin, all right? So, oh, Jolie owns Quantum. Nice. We'll talk about why Quantum exists, because it's not a tape deck. Why do I want you to listen to that? Because it's a plugin I've worked on. So there you go. Make me rich. But it's also, no, actually, I don't have any revenue from these things. None. Even Satin, which is kind of one of my latest additions. But we'll take a look at that. I just made sure I updated it today. And there's probably a couple more that I would use. But the bottom line is, I, on my music, don't quite use tape decks emulation a lot. Like things that are very tape sounding, as realistic as we can. I don't quite like it on the type of music I make. So it's very personal. It's got nothing to do with you. Oh, look at that. It just, did it get destroyed here? For whatever reason? What does it connect to sample drive? All right. So are we having issues with this thing? Oh no. Well, see, it doesn't quite want to authorize the right way, but it's here anyway. So we'll listen to all of these stuff. But I say we first listen to this thing without it being on, okay? So I have a little bit of a chorus. It's the second chorus of a session. Hear me out. I want you to focus on this. Can you see the plugins? Yes, you can. But I can be super small. Believe it or not, I can do that. So this session comes from a recording we did many years ago in Berlin of a French band that won a contest, came to Berlin and had a label, record deal, whatever. We recorded, then I mixed the record with the band, and then later on I even mastered the record. I wasn't supposed to do the mastering, but then I was asked to do the mastering afterwards. So the tracks you're hearing would go through my analog gear in a specific setting that I would have to do recalls for, that we're not doing, okay? But this song is also the object of our month's pattern mix, okay? And the pattern mix of this month, just saying so that just Mike understands the real meaning of why I'm saying this, because Mike does mastering a lot, as far as I remember. We're doing a mix plus master. So one patron of mine will mix the song and has to team up with somebody who'll do the mastering. And so they are gonna work in teams, okay? So it's kind of a different take on it. But the beautiful problematic thing of this session, the way we have it here, is that it does not go through the hardware as it was supposed to from the get-go. So I've done a little bit of a premix. There's some plugins. There's mostly the Studer 800 on some takes because it's just the way kind of the analog would do it. But they were not on tape, by the way. And this is a chorus. I think it's the second chorus. So I have a couple tracks, the drums, bass, four guitar tracks or 2 takes, but with 2 microphones each. And then not even the vocals. I haven't put the vocals in yet. So let's listen to this without the Ampex. You see, the machine is completely off. Let's hear where we are right now. And also let's figure out if you can hear me. I probably, it's gonna work. Okay, let's do this. Okay, so number one thing, connect sample content drive. Why do I have to connect sample content drive? It just makes no sense. Absolutely. You heard what it does? And it still works for whatever reason it does. I don't understand why it does just not want to effectively exist in an environment where things are gonna be played. But even if it gives me that error, the plugin is playing, clearly. So, this is the chorus, and I just want to, now that we made sure that it works, I'm just gonna go auto gain off and input. I'm just gonna set it up while it's going. We hear it, we just get an idea of what is happening. Crosstalk on, wow and flatter on, transformer on, 456 tape on 1/2 inch, 15 IPS, plus 6 calibration. This is how it gets. The controls, the advanced trim rings are not being touched, but I might do it afterwards, okay? So that we do reproduce and record, and then we just handle the vibe of it by using the meters and seeing where we are, okay? And then I'm gonna bypass the whole thing and then back on, and we just get an idea of how it is. Because here it's the last chorus, the band is vamping on it. It's a good thing of just to get this stereo versus mono thing with guitars and drums, transients and stuff. Let's do that. Okay, so it's a good plugin. Okay, so imagine I have never used it. but I have used it. But it's the first time I'm using it on Spark. Okay, so it is a first time. But I mean, they know what they're doing. This thing, I had for shy of 3 months and a half for a real 102 in the studio. And because a good friend of mine in Berlin does restoration of these machines and of mostly Studer and Telefunken, but he had a 102. He didn't have room to put it because his lab was under a theater and they were evicting him and other people because they're renovating the theater. And he asked me, do you want to keep the tape machine in the studio? I was like, okay, let's do that. He also hoped I would buy the tape deck, which I would absolutely love to, but I didn't have the money to buy that. So we tried some masters and mixes on it. The mixes were doing fine, but mastering on these kind of tape, and trust me, it was spotless, perfect. Didn't even have that scratch or powder there. Certainly not in my place. So it was beautifully set up. And customers or clients, that's how you should call them, artists, labels, were preferring mostly the hybrid masters without tape, but that's probably just a chain of people we had. I don't know, But it's solid. It's a good plugin. So we can start pushing, formulas and stuff, but I've just kept the 56, the 6+6.5 inch, and all you have to do, in my humble, modest opinion, it's not humble and modest, right? By the way, I say that, but I believe I'm God Almighty and that you should do what I say. I don't know if you've learned the lesson by now, but not true. In my humble opinion, you just have to fiddle with the meter on input to find your recording sweet spot, which is absolutely not dictated by the meter itself. It's dictated by your ears versus, your decision making. And then within the realm of really having the needle go from 3-ish to +3-ish, you will then set up your reproduce compensation, sorta. Hello, gold top Rob, sorry. Hello, welcome to the stream. So that's how mostly you would do that. You keep the crosstalk. You can experiment, obviously, but just like, what's the first step to just get your feet wet and have these things sound right? In my opinion, it's just that. Setting a solid record level that transforms the mix the way you want, and then compensating, just nudging the reproduce a little bit, okay? I went lower in your stream by -12 now because I fear that I will keep pushing things up, especially because my master is set at -16.7, okay? So I don't have a very loud volume coming here on the speakers. Because of that, I might be tempted to push stuff around, and these will distort your stream, which is something I don't want to do. So keep your level healthy, not too loud, not too soft, because tape kind of likes to show off when you're in that in-between. I would say probably from 68 to 78 or 70 to 78 dBA, whatever, kind of there. Will kind of give you that tape feel, because if you're getting blasted, it's kind of easy to say it sounds the same. It's harder for me to get tape, but at lower volumes or mid to low volumes, man, it's just so easy to just hear it. What does it do? Let's hear it again. I will fiddle with the parameters, but I'll copy to B, so we have our A. It didn't, okay, I'll copy and paste to B, and then we'll just do some more assessments, okay? I think there's a solo here. There's a solo. Can you believe that? So I want to find the solo now. But it will probably introduce some more stuff. There is a solo here, right? These are vocals. These are all vocals. B3, bass amp. Unbelievable. Is the vocals are singing? Maybe I'm mistaken. I'm sure there was a guitar solo here, or maybe they wanted it faded up. No, I don't remember what I've taken. Okay, so we keep these the way it is. We reopen the Ampex. It wants us to connect the sample content here. It just makes no sense. It will work anyway. Trust me. And let's play it back. And I'm gonna fiddle on the B preset, all right? I gotta say, this. I mean, I'm not setting a trap for you, but I hear that they really did their homework on the thing. Now, I am not the expert of tape formulas or tape heads or whatever, like calibrating those. Absolutely, I'm no tape operator for sure. But have you heard it? I kept the elements the same. I just reduced crosstalk while in flutter. I just disabled crosstalk while in flutters for 2 seconds, and the thing just became more polite. Things just started fitting the usual do space. Sounded nice, but it's just not being allowed to do its own thing. You start cross-talking and you start wowing and fluttering just a little bit, and things start meshing with each other, which I think is a very nice thing for tape. Okay, so that was a fast thing that I just wanted to check. Then we kept the 456, we kept the +6 calibration, and we just started moving our head from 1 to quarter to ½ inch and just moving on and off. All right, we started off at ½ inch. So if you're ready, I can give you what I personally think is happening, That is also what I would expect from what I've learned moving to that stuff. I hear what I was expecting, but I don't think my expectations are biasing my ears, okay? So forget for a second about ½ inch, okay? Let's talk about 1 versus quarter inch. To me, if you wanted to destroy this mix, I mean, consider it done, right? I mean, you have this mix, you can't redo it, A couple things have changed and this is how it works. When you go 1 inch tape, thinking it's better because you have a lot more surface that the tape had, the ferrite can go on and blah, blah, blah. You're destroying this song. The cohesiveness of where it was gets lost in the 1 inch. The drums, especially the snare, has plenty of room to just misbehave, just go around and be do snary things, It must not do it, And the guitars kind of leave it more 30% space left and right for the kit to be deeper, more, profound. All things I absolutely don't want from a rock mix, like this one especially, where we're relying on tape more than we would if the mix was to be finished. So 1 inch tape to me in this scenario, or given the same settings or whatever, it's just absolutely not what I would do, okay? Quarter inch does something very nice in comparison, obviously, because 1 inch ruins it to me. But quarter inch tightens things so much. It's almost kind of like a bus compressor thing. The fact that there's less space for data somehow, analog magnetic data, whatever you want to call it, to be there meshes things in a way that this sounds more like a band to me, more like rock. And I know I've worked with a lot of people who specifically want quarter inch tape for their own music or for bands like these, you know, and I hear that kind of sound, you know, it's there. Now, half inch puts the snare, and it's beautiful how weird that is, you know. You would believe that half inch would be kind of in between. To me, it's absolutely not in between. It's a third different thing. The snare on our half inch has even less room to breathe, or this, in my opinion, is what is happening. Quarter inch has such a reduced headroom, or whatever you want to call it, real estate space. The room is so small on the quarter inch that the snare kind of gets, I don't know how it manages to do it, but takes priority over the other elements of the mix. And so it's locked in, but it's a little bit forward. And probably that's because we don't have a lot of low frequency content compared to the half inch. Once we get to the half inch has such a beautiful low end. It's deeper, it's more complex, it's watery, it's there, it's deeper, it's kind of thicker as well, but it mostly exists compared to the quarter inch. All of a sudden you have extreme lows, like sub energy sorta, right? And this probably, that's my opinion, I don't know if that's what's happening, wants to occupy so much of the room that even if the half inch room is bigger than the quarter inch, the lows force the snare to back off. It's a beautiful back off, however, okay? It's a beautiful back off because it kind of stays there, and in my opinion, a band would have the drummer be there, right? 1 inch tape has such a big room that everybody can go wherever they want, and you know, you're just, it's a mess in comparison, right? It's not doing things right. So now that we know that, let's listen to it again. I'll go half inch, 1 inch, quarter inch, half inch. All right, so I just want to close this thing and redo it, just because I don't want you to say that this thing is not working, just so we're sure. Absolutely, but we have our preset because you can paste through different ones, so I haven't copy pasted anything. Let's redo it quickly, and we go half, 1, quarter, 2. Quarter, half, sorry. Oh, okay, so how nice is that? So Ratchat, hi, welcome. He says, he or she, I don't know, what plugin do you use for acoustic guitar sound? Oh, okay, for the acoustics, it just depends. Depends how you track them. You could use, you know, it just, you know, I like the 527 compressor for acoustics, for example. I'll throw you that, you know, because I can't derail the topic, but look into the API compressor from their channel strip kind of line. It's one of the weirdest compressors of all times, but it works fantastic on acoustic guitar. Nobody probably in this world knows how to use it, but trust me, it's a good thing. Rather than an 1176 or, you know, just, it depends so much on which guitar it is, who plays it, what room it is in, and the mics you're using. Are you using a condenser mic? Are you using a couple mics? Are you using, for example, figure of 8? Or is it cardioid in the room? It depends a lot, you know. So especially if you combine different mics, you don't want to overdo it with dynamics because you're kind of going to lose it. So, but look into the 527. That's my quick tip, which, you know, what was it? 20 seconds quick tip. So it works, it sounds fine, it's good, absolutely. So what happens if we start playing with tape maybe? I'll do a quick round of 250, 456, and 900. But you saw that when I was moving heads, the biasing and EQs change, right? Absolutely. That's how they are recalibrating stuff. So I'll just fiddle around with tape and cal, but I'll go back to the 456 and do when I move the cal. I don't want to change too much at the same time. Now, they're nice differences, but they're not quite pushing things the way I want it. And I'm thinking, we gotta go documentation here. Hold on. Let me copy this, and this is my chat thing. Let me go over this guy here and just run their manual thing. When you're changing tape, you should also, as a starter, you should, there we go. There's a calibration level that goes with the tape formula that you can break, of course, but it's good to know, okay? So the GP9 wants the +9. The 456 can be in between, I remember, the 6 and 7.5, and the 250 wants to go low, okay? So the lower the number of the 250 thing, the lower the calibration, the higher the calibration. It's as easy as it can be, okay? So if we go GP9, we gotta go +9, so opposite ways. And if we go 250, we go +3. Now, if I had to suggest something to UAD, I would probably either swap the order of the tapes or the order of the calibration, just because then you would go in line, right? 250 +3, 456, 7, 5, or 6, 900, 9 or 7, 5, and GP9, 9, okay? But this way, well, they didn't do it. So we gotta go sideways. So now that we know that, we're gonna test again, starting from the 250 with the right calibration. Because I have AutoCal engaged, they will follow along when I'm moving stuff, okay? Have you heard the extremes? I've just highlighted 250 +3, GP9 +9. The GP9 is angry, like real angry, The 456 +6 or 7.5 and the 900 as well, in my opinion, they have a very nice but compacted side channel somehow. I don't know why or how. They just have this thing, They have these little bit of, I could say, there's kind of compression on the side channel, but it's still wide. It kind of sounds like a little bit of over compression on the side, or peak control of the stereo material without changing the mid too much. But the GP9 at +9 just has that low bottom end, and it's just angrier somehow in a nice way. The 250 at +3, to me, as the most kind of open approach. And for the music I write, if I had to kind of pick by itself, like having a tape machine and knowing it cannot be changed, I would favor the 250 at +3. Because on half-inch or full inch, just so that tape does not get in my way in terms of limitations. It sounds to me that way. I don't know if that's the case. The speed, I will not do that much because, I mean, 30, 15, 7.5, we can do a round of it, but let's do it just because who wouldn't mess with tape formulas? So, MyCast, that's a very good question. What's your recommended settings for club stuff? So, right, because here it's rock music and we should kind of probably jump in different genres and say how it works, what it does here and there. So, electronic music with tape is problematic if you have something that needs to be subwoofer coherent worthy all the time. So the best is probably no tape, just go, different ways, maybe bass compression for sure, EQing, but tape itself, unless it's one of the more virtual tape of types of emulations, which is no longer like a real tape deck emulation, it shifts a lot and you start taking crosstalk away, wow and flatter away, you just want things to be coherent. Most of the people I had just, I handed out different masters of their electronic music, and I remember during the time we had the real one, we're always picking the hybrid master with the known tape thing because they just didn't like how the subwoofer floated around and they found the sub energy too implicit somehow, too felt and not really heard. It became easier to translate in many rooms, but it was no longer that left-right coherent, sine low, especially 808s and that stuff. So you ask like more like Mech DSP analog channel AC202, absolutely, like 202, Quantum, soft tube tape, I would say can kind of keep it together, but it's kind of I like that a lot. It's a plugin I've used as well. But if you really want it gnarly, you have to get into a lot of the crosstalk and stuff, and it's just not the tape for it. It behaves very well, so it can be positive or not. AC202 definitely has it, together. Even, I don't know, even Tape Sculptor can be used very lightly to just give you some compression and a little bit of edge. Because with electronic music, you might want more the upper mids presence of an Ampex for sure, without the implicitness of the subwoofer lows, But then again, is club music all the same? It's a very broad and generic term, right? So you might have something that plays in a club that has a little bit more of an electronic, Massive Attack influenced kind of thing. I don't know, I'm just saying Massive Attack because we both love them, I remember. You know where I'm going, right? The clubs where you're dancing and moving to things that are not strictly EDM or IDM, and they're influenced by more of an acoustic kind of vibe and people grooving and playing things without being rock, right? It's a sound at that point. It could be a good sound that you want because that fluctuation gives you that edge, that rough, realistic, in the moment thing, right? But a lot of collab stuff that goes against the next song and the previous one that they play together, people want it to be extremely punchy and no compromise, and tape was not was used, for these. Some people use Ableton Live just mix completely in the box. So, and it's become a sound as well. So yeah, but these, it definitely sounds fantastic for sure. This one, it's a good plugin. I like that. Let's try some tape, and then we'll see where we go with the advanced controls, because that's where I like to use a tape deck to fix more than one thing for me. Let's do that. So first, let's do tape speeds. Why not? Because they're there and they're broad. A lot of people think 30 is better because it's faster. It's not. It's just a different sound. Okay, very easy. Imagine that we're listening, okay, with our speakers. I don't know if you're having headphones or speakers, but virtually you have, like I have, a speaker there and a speaker there, okay? So I'm in a triangle, right? Imagine that the mix is kind of a reversed triangle as well. So at the tip of the triangle farther back, a little bit closer to that corner, is the drum kit. And here at the two corners are the guitars, and then the bass is kind of in the middle of the triangle, you know, at the intersection of all the height segments, whatever, the heights of all three sides. When I go 30, I hear it kind of narrowing it a little bit and going deeper. Like the height of the triangle is now longer, it's now bigger, and so it goes a little bit farther back and it tilts up somehow. I don't know why or how, it just sounds like it's tilting up. So I'm looking at a triangle that is narrower in the base, deeper, and a little bit uphill. And it's like, I'm gonna say it later. And when you go 15, the base opens up again and the height of the triangle is reduced, so I can kind of, the drums come closer to me. There's less depth somehow, but there's more to be enjoyed somehow. I don't know. It's because everything is kind of around me or in front of me without having to look very far, you know. And to me, the best, absolute best comparison we can make that I've always made, I've never heard anybody do it, I'm sure somebody did it, with tape speed is focal length on photography. So I don't know if any of you are into photos and shooting, you know, cameras and whatever, lenses and things, but it's like a 25 millimeter versus a 50, right? Or a 10, whatever. You know, it's just there. You know how it can change if you have a portrait photo and you're looking at just, you know, a model and you're taking a picture with a 25 millimeter, you know, their face will be in a certain context with the environment, with the background, with the framing. If you go 50 millimeter, it's gonna be different. But it's the same person, the same lighting, but the feeling of the photo is completely off. And you might like one or the other, or one might be better sometimes, other times another one might be better sometimes. So focal length is exactly what I think it is. You know, what is it? No, is it aperture? What is it? Is it focal length? Let's look at that. You know, 25 millimeter versus 50 millimeter lens. Is it focal length? Is it? It's a field of view, both lenses, but you get what I mean, right? Right, right, right. Wide angle lenses, normal, right? Short tele, that. I'm meaning that. And if you're into photos, you're gonna go like, oh yes, I get it. If you're not into photography, you're probably not gonna get these comparisons. So go back to the triangle thing, which is just basic geometry. That's kind of easier. But to me, it completely feels like a 50 versus a 25. And I kind of like 15 here, but some people like 30. I wouldn't go 7.5 or 3.75 for a mix like this, but it gets crunchier. It's a little bit more of a lo-fi sound design thing, okay? So now let's tweak this here. I wanna keep everything as is, but I wanna change my repro thing and just mess things up. So how cool is that? So you bias completely counterclockwise, you're crunching the tape, there's basically no useful data getting recorded, right? But let's go slowly clockwise. So are you changing headroom? Somehow, yes. Is it, but have you heard how there's extreme ranges that are probably not gonna be just useful because they're making tape misbehave. But between, I would say, 10 o'clock and 2 or 3 o'clock, you go from crunchy at 10, o'clock, to really, really respectful around 2:30, okay? Like quarter to 3 a.m., obviously. And that's bias, because you're biasing your tape to get different amount of information distributed differently, and that's what it does. Now, a cheap tape machine was probably pretty much where we had our tape at around 10.5, 11. It just sounded, I don't know, very lo-fi, right? Like you're pushing things into a tape deck thinking it's awesome. It's not. In my personal case, I kind of like to, I don't know, probably over-bias, I think. Is it over-biasing or under-biasing? I don't know. But I like to go clockwise here. There's a sweet spot sometimes where I kind of heard the mix be there. So let's set it up, and then let's do the EQ for the what I think is the rec head. So the high frequency breaking point. So that's kind of your high pass. And then the shelf change in the low register, right? The so-called kind of bump. I don't know if this shelf has also kind of an undershooting. I don't know how it works in the ATR-102, but let's do that. Then we're gonna touch the repro. Okay, so number one thing, the bias sounds to me good when we're autocal green. So it means that would be where the tape formula would have its kind of best calibration. So it sounds fine. That's like 1 a.m. thing. It kind of loses it. It just becomes too weak after. It's just a volume drop, yes, but it's also kind of how it's not gluing things together. And then it distorts too much if we go counterclockwise. Now, the EQ for the rec head is not the high pass filter and the low shelf. So we're not controlling the bump on the rec head, I think, probably, or not. We're effectively choosing how much of the high frequency content is getting pushed. So let's do it again. Actually, let's go here to our manual here. Do I have it still? Oh yes, nice. So let's go HF. Okay, so the shelf EQ, the HF EQ, let's go here. So high frequency emphasis on the signal recorded. Okay, so that's a rec head, right? But the shelf is another control provided to compensate for tape non-linearity. Okay. Although adjustment of these controls is not part of the Ampex factory calibration procedure, it can be used for customized manual calibrations or creative purposes. Okay, so I'm thinking the HFEQ would be the only control you would have on the real thing. And then again, you wouldn't go there and just change stuff around. But then it's got a specific shelf shape that we are allowed to change, that we wouldn't be allowed to change. So you can, just this setting, kind of 12 o'clock-ish, is the default. So you heard how it was kind of giving us a more high-frequency content to tape thing, right? Let's redo it, and then I'm going to touch the repro, low-frequency, high-frequency. You heard that when the music starts, there's no guitars because I muted the bridge guitars. So the bass gets into my mix bus with compressors, and EQs, and it just gets all of the energy of the bass compressors for itself. So it's so loud, but it would not be that loud if guitars were in place. In fact, when the chorus starts, the bass goes back, right? That's the effect of my mix bus before tape. So we don't care, that's how it is. When the chorus starts with the guitars, that's when I want to tailor this. Have you heard it? Have you heard it? Two things. Have you heard it? How easy it is to mess it up completely and go bypass and go like, oh, right, mid frequencies. I had them, you know, because you've taken what the healthy transformation of the natural tape calibration machine would do, that's a long sentence, and sent it to extreme levels. All right, so then the dip in the mids that healthily happen in a calibrated 102 are getting overexposed because you're pushing lows and highs and the mix just sounds weaker. And you go bypass and you go like, oh, right, I do not know how to use tape. In fact, it happens. And when you bypass it, luckily you go like, no, wait, I'm losing so much. And you start messing back with the calibration things, right? But these things are advanced. And what did I say at the beginning? Just set a healthy record level and a reproduce level and you're probably done. You're probably done. Or at least save a preset there. Save your A settings, right? Then go to B and say like, okay, well, I can change these. I'm telling you naturally, this plugin will do the Ampex thing, which is even more to me sometimes than the Studer's emulations tend to do. So there's a cleanup effect in the mid area. And that's convenient because it's kind of hard to translate that in cars, living rooms, and all that kind of stuff. But it also messes up with a balance that you might like, right? The Ampex tends to do it a little bit more because it's got that presence, that edge in the upper mids that make, records kind of wanting to be heard. Studers are not just that overt, that present. So that's why it feels like the mids are a little bit dehydrated. Again, you try something like this on wrong settings on a techno track, and you might end up reducing the mids that a techno track usually doesn't even have until some breakdown, some noise that might get filtered sometimes, but it's already kind of scooped in that you're not doing anything overproductive to the song, to me. That's why I wouldn't go rush to use an A102 on a straight up techno track. I'm sure people have done it, sold millions of records, but I wouldn't personally, It's just a different thing. However, you heard how amazing it is. If this thing, you use it on bass, on the EQ controls, on overheads, on sharp hi-hats, claps, on track level, you can do whatever you want. And those controls that you would never be allowed to touch on a real tape deck become your tape, sculpting effects. So that's absolutely fantastic. But on a mix, on the vision of a full thing, if it's, done right, you start missing that warmth. It's actually funny because when I messed the controls up and went too far, it was not warm tape, right? It wasn't warm, which is like, oh, tape sounds so warm. Well, the Ampex to me does not sound warm. It's not a warm tape machine, but it certainly can be packing it into a record, right? Yes, it's a little bit easier to listen to. You sacrifice stuff, but it's easier. It's easier to translate, less details to overlook, to just overthink about, right? It's easier to just let it go. That's true. Tape does that. And I'm thinking the crosstalk is responsible for it, the while and flutter as well. So we can, play with these as long as we want. What I want to do now, I won't even change the knob CCIR, but I'll keep the knob that we liked. And I think we're pretty much set where we were initially, right? Record and reproduce I haven't changed. Everything is auto-cal, so we're back to where we were. I want to do comparisons now. I want to do the 102, obviously, versus somebody else, okay? So how about we do Quantum versus the 102? And the thing here is that, number one, okay, here, let me see the final tape. Can you see that? Yes, perfect, awesome. This is set right. I will just keep it the way it is. It's a setting I kind of use a lot. And then I'm gonna just turn it on and then off with the Ampex because they're set on the same track. So first I wanna make sure that they're kind of the same level. And if they're not, I'll move the reproduce slider just because I wanna get in the ballpark. This to me speaks volumes because I know this plugin very well. You don't know it probably, but it's kind of a virtual, sort of like theoretical tape effect. It's not just something like the 102 where you have control over everything. But which one sounds better and why? Or is there a better one? Or is there like, what does the 102 do that Quantum doesn't? So I'll start with the Ampex and then I'll move to the Quantum. Nice, huh? You don't get these tests because, not a lot of people have Quantum. But I am in love with what Dave Hill did on his Crane Song Head, for sure. This plugin is not endorsed by or, has not fulfilled all the necessary quality checks, whatever. But I really like how he saw and will forever see, because Dave is no longer with us, but his products, the lineage lives on. The way he hears tape, the work he's done in these processors is just amazing. However, you see where I'm breaking off from what tape does, right? That's why I said on my type of music, on music that wouldn't probably just want to land into tape land, that's just, no pun intended, something a little bit more virtual is better. So Quantum doesn't feel like there's really the reels spinning. There's no kind of rusty edge. I wouldn't say it is vintage, right? But you let Quantum go for a couple seconds and you can hear the mix better. There's that innards saturation. It's just like you've been treating the dish, the ingredients are kind of blending better together and they're just feeling more into just together. It's just a better translation thing. And it's hard to not find settings where you kind of get that, but it stops there. And it can be beneficial for you or it can be not enough. The Ampex just flies in the sense that you now start getting crosstalk, you get volume flutter. The low mids are probably what I like the least compared to the two, but there's that sandy edge and just, guitars are more like it's a rock song, so we're giving them the little bit of push. Could you push things before Quantum? Yeah, I mean, yes, you can get wherever you want if you have one, the other, or one of the many, but just like out of the box, right? Like right there. Why do so many tape plugins exist? That's because they have different visions, right? And there's probably nothing farther away from each other as these two. There would be a lot of plugins that go the Quantum route, and there's a lot of plugins that go the Ampex route, but they're different categories within tape emulation. So we heard that. Now, how about Slate? So I haven't touched this. You see we have a 16 track and 2 track. We have a 456 formula. I'm gonna use the same 15 IPS. The bias is medium. We're kind of there. I'm not grouping and I'm not using any of the advanced controls here. Everything is default. The hiss auto mute, the noise reduction, baseline, everything is 100% what the default kind of preset is. I've only moved the output a tiny little bit. So now we go Ampex versus the Slate FG tape VTM, sorry, with obviously the FG being the contribution that Fabrice Gabriel gave to this plugin, which is probably his brainchild or whatever, I don't know. Anyway, let's go. Okay, that was enlightening, right? So off the bat, off the box, we started the Ampex, we got, just so much tickling, so much nice stuff. We went to the VTM and it was like boring, like you're trying, but you're not, you're emulating the Ampex. You're not really the Ampex, right? You're really, like, things are looser. Let me go back to the 102. That's true. And there's kind of a brightness from the preset here that I have that keeps giving, right? That's, I told you, it's the settings, yes, but that's what the ADR tends to do. Just give you that more presence, that bite there, makes vocals more understandable and stuff. Okay, but I went through the settings, didn't want to change anything for the VTM. I just took the input and went 1.21 up, and then I compensated with the output. Kept everything exactly the same. And what happened was that visually we're kind of pinning the meter for the VU of the Slate VTM, but the sound is just so good. And I think that's pretty much why I've always kind of, leaned on the side of the meter is not quite moving in VTM. I wouldn't say that, but on the loudest of the choruses, on the loudest parts where the song kind of develops, it's a plugin I don't fear pushing with the meter that has barely one, like from 3 to 2 movement, okay? It sounds good. And it sounds much closer in tightness to the 102. So maybe you have the VTM and you just maybe never thought about that. There's different controls, there's different things, but you can group stuff and maybe, it's a plugin that's been around for years and years, right? And sounds really good for sure. But the trick was the meters look like almost as if they're calibrated differently, and you need to push the VTM there to have the 102 inside, right? And it kind of, once you get there, it sings. The VTM has a lot of leeway moving there. There's that kind of pillow effect. So now I want to try this. Now satin is a completely different beast, but it's also one of my references in tape. It can be very subtle, it can be a little bit more gnarly. I have this preset I made, I don't even remember when, the Ampex ATR-103. I don't know. But it's kind of fun to call something Ampex. I don't know why nobody has ever thought about it. So this thing does groups as well, and you can, you have hiss, asperity, crosstalk, wow and flutter, bias, gap width, bump, azimuth, right? So let's play with satin first, just so that we kind of get along with it, and then we'll go back to our ADR the way that we had it, okay? We're not gonna touch the 102. Right? Okay, I think Satin can find its way around. It doesn't need to. There's also this compander feature. You can encode to a specific type of encoder, like the Dolby's, the UHX, whatever, like the kind of DBX kind of style. The most famous ones that you would use to encode and decode, and improve the quality of your recordings and data storage and stuff. And then you can decode and not encode, or you can encode and decode with the same settings, with the same machines. You can encode and not decode. You can decode without encoding. I find these one of the coolest things because it really helps sound designing. On grooves and electronic stuff, it kills them. It's just beautiful because you go against everything people want to do. Now, there's tape modern and tape vintage. Maybe here we should go vintage because we have a 456.9, but I just wanted to let you hear just basically what it was doing. I retouched things when it sounded fine, and I'm thinking Satin is the one tape deck virtually that has mid frequencies in mind. So you hear how it doesn't give up, it doesn't dehydrate them, that's the word. So now we go 102 versus Satin. If there's any volume difference, I'll address it on the output of Satin, okay? Which is set on makeup input. So makeup input means we can drive the input. We're not gonna get, different levels from the output. It's just how we drive the machine, but we might get a difference, obviously. So let's do that. So I'm saving over it because that's the Ampex ATR-104, people, live here. So we had tape on modern, and I think apart from not having the pre-emphasis set the right way, which would be sort of like our EQ, there's no bias compliance here or calibration compliance on the Satin. There's no green light that tells us you're now in the right. So around 12 o'clock, it sounds always to me like we're kind of there. I don't know. And I was kind of a little bit too dark. But the settings we had until I moved my tape to vintage were very polite. So Satin can do when you don't want tape to be blasting into the courtroom like the whatever tomato sauce thing, cartoon character, right? I don't know if you get that reference. You probably shouldn't if you're sane of mind. But you just don't want tape to say like, okay, I'm the first one in the band. No, you're not the first one in the band. You're just passing music through. Well, no, because I'm an Ampex 102, I'm important, okay? A lot of genres of music, for that reason, the clients don't want tape to dissect things too much. But they can be beneficial for music like this. However, tape modern on satin takes that approach of a more, be all and all of things. It's not over impacting. So EDM, IDM, club music, I'd probably think, okay, let's try satin with a little bit of a modern touch and take it from there, and just reassess the machine to our likings. I moved it to vintage, and all of a sudden, they were head to head. And I think satin is probably the closest 102 out of the bunch of plugins that you can fiddle with and touch and touch and touch and touch, and then maybe break and get a worse mix than before, and you have to do an additional revision and stay up all night. Satin can do it. I don't know how or why, and I don't know why in the presets they haven't. Oh, why don't I have presets? Oh, yes, I do. Okay, if you go here in the studio modes, I'm thinking, see, you have 800s, you have, okay, well, no, we have it. I completely forgot. Okay, so there's ATR-102 presets if you want. But to me, if you're talking to me, are you talking to me? This is the setting done one-to-one. So copy it out if you have satin, and you can save yourself some money, I don't know. They're not identical. They're not identical. They don't sound the same. They will not null against each other. We know that. But the vibe is even closer than VTM to me, although VTM sounded good anyway. I mean, they're all good, the ones we tried, okay? But I wanted to give you some reference about things. Now, if you move to 250 and then go +3 and then 1 inch, the 102 by UAD is super convenient because you go from scenario to scenario. Satin just keeps more options open in the absolute term of tape. But all it matters is the sound. Although some of you might say, if the workflow is complicated, I can't get sound results that quickly and effectively, which you're right, you're absolutely right. But satin's been around since, I don't know, forever. And we know UHI, they're super famous. Who doesn't know them for all of the virtual instruments that are there? I have pretty much all of them. And if you remember, I actually started streaming during the pandemic, mostly synth exploration videos, and I think they were the first products I covered. So I love what I do, how they think about synthesizers, but few people know they have sound process effects as well, one of them being satin, and that's how it sounds, okay? So people, this is pretty much it. I think we covered a lot of ground. We went through the controls, we went through the things that make tape what it is, thanks to the fact that the 102 has realistic parameters, tape formulas, calibrations, head width, the crosstalks on tape speed, the different monitoring stuff. And we kind of took it slowly, but not too much. And we assessed that most of the things you should do is just fine-tune the sweet spot at which you want to hit tape, which is your record knob versus the reproduce or repro knob. You're just like when you drive an amplifier, a guitar amp, you want to find that spot in which you have the right saturation. The same happens with tape, and other analog devices. Then you can start messing things up, and maybe you'll get a better sound for that specific mix. You'll save a preset, then can be your starting point. Another thing I haven't talked about, which I think is very important, is you can do it the other way around. So you put your tape plugin on your mix bus way before finishing the mix, and you put it on settings that are kind of in between and standard. Could be like the default 456/6 1/2 inch or something you found out to be cool, and then you mix into it. And I guarantee you that tape will do a lot for you. because it will just, help you kind of put things together. A lot of people, however, don't like to work that way because they no longer have a linear mix bus behavior in terms of gain staging. So when you're approaching the 0 VU on the meter here in the inputs, the mix starts crunching together, maybe in a very nice way. But if you solo your drums, now your tape deck is not saturating as much. So you're mixing something in solo, put it back in the mix, sounds different because now maybe the low frequency you tweaked is impacting the mix differently. Some people don't like that, okay? Some people I know one guy actually who keeps plugins like this on his second monitor. How many of you have a second display? And you might have your favorite visualizer, right? Something that tells you mid-side frequency distribution, like fancy lights, all those things, right? Now I want you to think about something that might be more beneficial to you when you're using tape than anything else we've done today. If you have a tape machine on your 2-bus and you have room for it, like a second monitor or a third one maybe, put that plugin on the second monitor just to keep that VU that you see there always in sight. Because things happen in which you start adding instruments, playing with buses, addressing problems in the mix, and your saturation level is shifting around. And you saw it, even 2 VU units are gonna make the mix sound completely different. So instead of having a weird but cool looking visualizer, don't splurge for that. Don't just shed money out for something that in other cases it's perfectly fine. But if you're mixing and this guy is the last one, keep that one on the screen. Maybe your second screen. And you just have to wing it, just eye it out. You see your meter is pinned to the red. You're mixing too hot. You're making decisions that will break the mix because you're in a situation that's not where you want to be. So once you're calibrated, keep it there. Takes a little bit of experience because you need to do your own preset, but I think it gives you a lot of satisfaction. So, Martin, hi. No problem. Don't worry. You'll probably have to watch this video again, which brings me to a solid point that Martin said. This video will be available in the future. For those of you in the future, you're already watching this. So, thank you, Martin, for coming. Very kind of you. And I was just closing things around and saying that this plugin can be your output meter as well. So if plugins that are non-linear in gain are at the very end of your mix bus, those are probably the meters you want to keep on your second screen, not just your fancy visualizer with the lava lamp effects and cool things. Keep this. When you're mixing, you see your low, you can address that instantly. If you don't see these and you slowly creep your levels up, which we all do sometimes, you'll end up with a crunchy mix. The moment you drop that record knob down, the mix will fall apart. And now you have to do it again. And it's just not a matter of lowering the record. You made choices in your mix bus, in your buses, in your single instruments that affected the way the Ampex is reacting to. So it is more important than actually finding the amazing setting for a tape plugin or which tape plugin or whatever. These things are non-linear. They're gonna shift on you if you go too hot or too low. And as you heard, there's that spot. So if you wanna use it before mixing, like at the start or 20% in the mix and then mix, more power to you. I do it that way. But remember to keep an eye and an ear on the non-linearities. If you're used to working with analog, it's easier because you know analog is not linear. You feel it when you're kind of getting into the too hot area, right? But if you're used to a linear mix bus especially, maybe add it to the end. The problem is you will use a lot more plugins if you don't have something like this at the very end because this addresses a lot of stuff and makes things way less precise and so keeps you going. So you're warned, all right? That's it. I have nothing else to say. Can you believe that? Well, first off, thanks for being here. Very kind of you to join. I am gonna do more streams in the future check out my latest soundtrack for Fears to Fathom Woodbury Getaway. It's on Bandcamp. It's fearstofathom.bandcamp.com. You'll probably find it here in the links of these streams and videos as well. That's the latest thing I've done. Super cool. I love doing that. And as Valeria, my wife, said, put that playlist on shuffle and enjoy, okay? For sure. You'll see why if you visit the page. Then we're gonna do more videos soon. So there's a lot of things happening, including the Patron Mix Plus Master. And for the next months, we're looking to record stuff together and then I'll mix it. So how cool is that? And that's it. Check out my Patreon. I do this because of their support. If people weren't supporting me with as much as like $10 a month, what you enjoyed today wouldn't be possible. I know there's people here who've been around since forever, and I couldn't be happier to have you here all the time. And again, these will be rewatchable. I love these live format because you can ask me stuff and then the videos are a little bit more like impromptu. Like it's jazz. I like it better than studying a part and playing it the same every single time. I'm not that person. So today we took a look at the ATR-102 by Ampex first, remade by Universal Audio under license. Really nice plugin. We did a lot of comparison. Again, check out what we do. See you next time. Ciao. I have the best testimonials on the ending, and you're gonna be seeing them now. Proof, people. That's it. Ciao.